What's up, y'all? It's your girl Chanel Beauty coming back with another video, and this video is going to be a little different. I've been thinking about doing videos like this for a while now, and I just decided to start out right now doing it with a case that is pretty bizarre, if you want to say respectfully, but it's also close to my home, that always stayed with me, and I never really knew how it turned out or anything like that, because it kind of went unsolved. So this is going to be just me doing my makeup and telling y'all about a story about 4 football players going missing in the Gulf of Mexico, aka like the Tampa Bay. And that is very close to me, if you know that I am from Tampa Bay, Florida. And this story has always stuck with me. It happened about 2009. At that time, you know, I was still young, but I was old enough to like still remember when it happened. And I just remember it being like a story that was like very, like I said, respectfully, not to be, you know, disrespectful, but like bizarre, like the stuff that happened and how it turned out, and just like how the case went and how the ending went. And like after that, like no one ever talked about it. I don't ever recall it being any type of like 1-year anniversary or 5 years or even 10 years. So yeah, so this story happened in 2009. I will be doing my makeup, not necessarily showing the makeup products, because I just feel like it's not that type of video, but I will be doing my makeup. And I hope you guys enjoy this segment of my channel that I want to start implementing within my channel. And I just hope you guys enjoy, and also take as much information as possible from this case, and then just, you know, research it more maybe and see how you can possibly help the situation. It was just like crazy. Like, this story has always stuck with me, and if you know me, just to put that out there, I'm not just like doing it just because it's trendy. I have always liked things that was crime related. I have, my favorite show is Forensic Files, like since I was like little. So I have always been into like crime and just like cases and forensics and just all types of stuff. And why not do that while doing something else I love, which is makeup. So I'm one of the, I like to say, like one of the people that actually like is into both things, and I'm not just doing it because it's trendy. Like, I really just love that. So just to put that out there, like that's what I love. So let's get into the story. I'm gonna break down somewhat of like the identities, I guess you could say, of the victims, without like going too deep into where it's going to make the video too long, and then get into the story and the aftermath. So y'all stay tuned. So this story is about 4 NFL players, like I said. And when you see me looking down, it's because of my mirror right here. And yeah, sometimes I need my mirror to look at instead of the camera. And yeah, so basically what I was saying is that this story is about 4 football players. You have basically 2 University of South Florida football players, and then 2 NFL players that is a part of this story, and then you have 1 survivor. So yes, it was 4 of the football players that went missing on a vessel, which is basically a boat, on a fishing trip back on February 28th of 2009. This happened around my area, so I basically remember when this happened. And even though I was young, I was old enough to know, to remember the story basically, but I was still in school. Like, you know, I think around that time I was like in high school. I know I'm showing my age. But yes, this happened on February 28th, and you may see me look down as well because I wrote notes, because this is my first video like this, and I don't want to mess up any type of information as much as possible. But of course, the story, it is respectfully bizarre, and I just want to put that out there. So all of this stuff that I did research and find, it is still allegedly, because you have a situation where there's one survivor and the other three did not survive. I wouldn't say that's like messing up the storyline, because I mean, it's probably going to say that in the title, and that's just, it's going to make things easier. So basically, you have one of the football players, which is one of the NFL football players that played for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, which is in my basically hometown. He owned a boat, and he he was really close to one of the other guys that disappeared, which is, his name is Corey Smith. So you have Marquis Cooper and Corey Smith. They met, I believe, while playing for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, because they both played for the team, and they also just was close and worked out together after that. Like, they actually gained a friendship. So Corey and Marquis was supposedly really close friends, and like I said, they met on the NFL team, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And like I said, I wanted to cover this story because it is like close to home for me, and it's just so bizarre, and it really kind of went away strange, and like no one ever talks about it anymore. But they were really close, and they went on a couple boat trips together, because Marquis really had such a love for the water ever since he was a child. He even at some point was about to take up a career in that type of field, but the way his stars aligned, he just ended up being in the NFL. But he really had a love for the water. He loved fishing. There was a post, I believe it was credited to ESPN, saying that his father said that like he went out a couple times on a boat with him, and he would go so far out that they couldn't see the land, and he just seemed so comfortable with it, like Marquis. So he was like really comfortable on the water, but the dad always had like his reserves of it. That's what he told the news outlet. And he was just so comfortable, and he just loved the water, and his father said that he was like that since he was little. And if any fish were to come out of the water, that he could probably tell you what type of fish it was, and that's how much he enjoyed doing that. And I'm pretty sure he did it too for like relaxation and other things like that, because that can't be an easy job being in the NFL. So him and Corey, the ones that met at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers team, they were pretty cool. So Marquis will go out on different voyages with his father. Sometimes he'll take Corey, and he'll just go out fishing, and it was just a routine thing. It was normal for him. He was very familiar with the water. He was a great swimmer. He was athletic, so of course he was built to, sustain a lot of things, and just like he didn't give up easily. They said his personality was just not that to just give up. He would fight to the end and everything like that. Basically, what happened on the day of February 28th is that Marquis and Corey met somehow during like workout, because they used to all work out, being that they all played football. Even if it was at like different stages, they used to all work out at what I found was Planet Fitness. Was not Planet Fitness, was LA Fitness, and that's how the four met. So you basically have two friends and then two friends, and then they came together on that day. So basically they met at LA Fitness, and a guy, which is one of the people on the boat, he's actually the survivor, Nick Schuler. He I believe he used to train them and at the gym, and then they just all had just such a like for fitness and football, so they became close friends. And still to this day, it is said that Nick still have a training company and he still trains still to this day. And mind you, this happened in 2009, so yeah, he supposedly have like a business in training, which is not actually far from where everything happened. So just to put that out there. So basically, they met at the gym. They used to work out together all the time, the four guys. And you have, I hope I didn't get the names wrong. So you have Marquis Cooper, you have Corey Smith, you have Will Blakely, and then you have Nick Schuler. Nick Schuler is the survivor, and they all met at the gym. And one day they just decided to all go out on this boat really early in the morning, probably before, I'm trying to think how the time is around that time. If they went out around February, it will get light pretty early in the day, I believe around 5. And it was said that they went out on the boat around 7. And so basically on February 28th at around 7 o'clock, they departed from the Seminole boat ramp in Clearwater Pass, which is also not that far from me. They departed from that boat ramp at around 7 o'clock, which is around February in Florida. It's pretty light outside because it gets dark early around 5 and it gets bright around 5 a.m. So they should have had sunlight, just to throw that out there, but it was still very early that they went out to go fish. And per the investigation and what Nick told, which is the survivor, told the investigators, and all of this is allegedly, because just to throw that out there, it has been different stories he have told. Like, his story is really never the same, so you kind of got to take it with a grain of salt. But it could also just be like him being out there in hypothermia, which had affected all of them, and I will get more into that. It could have just been like hypothermia, what he thought he remembered or something like that. But that's basically what everything, as far as like what happened on the water, that's basically, it's coming from him and what his account was. So just like keep that in mind. Basically what Nick said was that, you know, they departed. They have a boat log, of course, just like planes have the flight log. So, you know, everything was like, you know, documented. But he said like once they got in the water, you know, they stayed out there for a little while. And Marquis, who boat it belonged to, he wanted to go out a little further. So he wanted to travel out more. And his dad, Marquis' dad, said that like that happened a lot. Like he always wanted to go out. Remember when I mentioned saying that the dad said he would go so far out they couldn't see land, like on either side of the boat. They couldn't see land. Like he would go that far out and be so comfortable because he just loved the water that much. So that day he wanted to go out again. He said like on that day they bought like, you know, some Miller Lite beer, like probably like a 6 to 12 pack. He said that they bought some food. He said that they bought some food as well, and then they also bought it was something else, like maybe snacks or something. But yeah, so they went out further. He said it took them about, to get to where Marquis wanted to be, it took them like a couple hours. Like it took them like 3 hours, 2 to 3 hours, maybe even 4. He said they were like 70 miles out from shore, from where they originally, you know, departed from. They were that far out, and then they anchored the boat, you know, so that they can fish for what they were looking for. And like I said, Marquis took this path and voyage before, so he was really comfortable with it. But for some reason on the way out, Nick, the survivor, got really sick. He just, some people get seasick, so I'm thinking that's what happened. And he got really sick. I'm not sure exactly if he was drinking that day, but I don't know if it was Nick or the investigator said that like some of the cans of the beer, was missing. So like obviously some of them was taking some drinks. Like some of them was having drinks. I read somewhere that Corey Smith, which was Marquis' close friend, like he didn't drink. They said he didn't drink, he didn't smoke, he was very, you know, serious about his health. Like that's just some stuff that he just didn't do. So he may have had something, just to relax, but I'm kind of feeling like he really didn't drink that trip. So I'm thinking maybe the people that drank, since it was some, cans that was used or whatever, that it was, Nick, Will, and maybe the captain, just to say that. I'm not totally sure, but, that's a possibility because they said Corey did not drink at all, so he probably was just like there having just a good time. But some reason, Nick got sick while they were on their way out to the, like, basically 70 miles out from the land. Like while they were on their way out to the destination, he fell ill, and he said that like it was cold that day, but when they left, like it wasn't, the wind and stuff wasn't crazy, but it was cold that day, and they all had on like, appropriate weather attire, like windbreaker jackets and like, sweatpants or like windbreaker pants or whatever. He said like they did dress like that, and at one point Nick put on his and at one point Nick put on his like sweatshirt that he had, he said, because he had got cold and sick. And I think I read somewhere that he like fell asleep at one point. But yeah, so he was like really the only one that got sick. And then once they got out to about 70 miles offshore, they began to anchor the boats and put the anchor down in the water. And he said they stayed out there for like a couple of hours. And mind you, they left like I said, 7 o'clock. They left like really early in the morning. And he said when they got out there, it was like, I think he said it was like the afternoon. Like it was like, either like between like 2 and like 4. Like it took them a while. Like it literally took them a couple hours to get to where Marquis wanted them to be at. And then they started fishing and stuff like that. And then he said like slowly, the weather started to progress and get worse. And at that point, when it got to his worst, he, Marquis, because he's the captain of the boat, it's his boat. And mind you, the boat is about 27 feet long, between 21 to 27 feet long. So it was a pretty big boat. Yeah. So basically the wind and everything got worse. He said at that time, I believe a cold front was coming in, which is in Florida. I don't know if this happens in other areas, but in Florida we get things called cold fronts, which is where, we have pretty decent warm weather, but a cold front is like when we are just out the blue kind of get like this, for us, very cold weather. Like it could get down to like the 50s from like the 80s. So, a cold front was supposedly coming in. I don't know if the guys knew about this cold front, but like a cold front was coming in at the time, like when they was out there in the water. And so when they started to realize things were getting bad, they decided to like, pack up and leave after being they were out there for like a while. So they were out there for a while, and I don't know if they caught anything, but they ended up packing up. And at one point when they tried to get the anchor out of the water, the anchor was stuck to something. Like for some reason the anchor wouldn't come out. And so Nick said he basically was trying to tell like Marquis, since he was like the captain, like, hey, like trying to give advice, like maybe we should, he told Marquis like, hey, maybe we should try to like tie it against the motor, because it was like a electric boat, and it was, like I said, it was like 21 to 27 feet electric boat with one like motor. He was like, you know, we should maybe try it, tie it to the back of the motor and floor the boat and try to see if we can pull it out that way, like with the speed, I guess. And so they tried that, and I believe the anchor, they said, was like at the front of the boat, and the motor, of course, was like at the back. So they went to the back, tied the anchor to the back of the boat, and Marquis attempted to floor the boat. Basically, flooring is like try to speed off in the boat to try to pull the anchor out of whatever it was stuck in. So they did that to no avail. Like, they did that, and it ended up flipping, aka capsizing the boat. He said, like, while it was like flipping over, and this is like I said, he told different stories, so all of this is like allegedly, but one of his stories was like, while it was flipping over, Marquis yelled for everybody to get on the other side of the boat. So like as it was flipping and say this way, he was trying to tell everybody to go this way so that it can kind of level off the boat. But it was like basically too late, and the boat ended up capsizing and flipping over to his belly, and they were all in the water at this point and trying to flip the boat over. Like he said, like a couple times they tried to flip it over, and they tried to you know, retrieve the boat, basically, to no avail. They were unable and unsuccessful to flip the boat back over. So a couple times, he didn't tell necessarily the family this, like he basically, the survivor told the news one thing, and then told like, I'll say 2 out of the 3 families another thing. So it's kind of like I said, everything is allegedly, but like on a couple, you know, accounts and news outlets, he said that Will Bleakley basically went under the boat a couple times, and he retrieved a couple things. He retrieved life vests, he retrieved a cushion from, I guess, one of the seats to, you know, float on, and then he also, and hold on to, and he also retrieved like their cell phones that was like in a Ziploc bag. And even though he was able to get that, he said, like, of course, eventually, like, really quickly, the phones gave out because it got wet. So they wasn't able to necessarily, like, call anyone, you know. But he was able to retrieve it at least. So they were able to retrieve that and put on their life vests. So they all had on their life vests. And I'm going to try to import a photo of how he said they eventually ended up on the boat. So even though the boat was flipped over, they were able to somewhat climb on top of the bottom of the boat. And Nick and Marquis, he was kind of over as far as the drawing or whatever. He was like holding on very tightly to something. I'm not sure what it was. I couldn't really see because you can only see like his back. And then you have Nick. He was like somewhat in a surf position, and he was like halfway on the boat. So Marquis was like the only one like fully on the boat, and then it was like Nick, and then Will was like not fully on the boat, but not fully in the water either. So he was like a little further down than Nick. And then at the very bottom, fully in the water, was Corey. So they all was trying to just, you know, stay afloat and keep warm, because I'm pretty sure the waters were really cold. They said that day it was like at least 60 degrees in the water. It was very windy that day. Nick claimed it was, you know, some rain here and there, and it was a cold front. So, you know, outside, like the actual wind could have been like cooler than, like it could have been like 50, and the water could have been like 60 at that point, like during the day, like afternoon, you know what I'm saying, like not even at night. I'm pretty sure it got much cooler at night, but he said like at that point, that's how they were on the boat. He said they just basically held on for as long as possible, and at some point, like they one by one started, and this is so creepy, and it's stuck with me all these years. It's just like, especially since they like never was really discovered. So like, just to throw that out there, like the ones that like was didn't survive, like 3 of them was never discovered, like ever. Bodies, none of that. So basically he said like they held on for as long as possible, and one by one they each started kind of giving up and experiencing hypothermia. Now I'm gonna also put like, try to implement and import, you know, the definition of hypothermia and kind of like what goes on in the body and mind when you are experiencing that, because you know, basically you go into shock, and you kind of can sometimes hallucinate and things like that. You can just pass out, of course, and die and stuff like this. So just imagine like the people that were like, you know, on the Titanic, and how they like, mostly all of them died from hypothermia. And so that's kind of like what they were experiencing. And I guess he said like a couple times the boat, I mean the waves would just like knock all of them off the boat, and then they would try to get back on the boat. So even with that drawing, I'm assuming that's how it was at first, like how they were positioned. But like a couple times, of course, as they were like getting knocked off by waves, because I want to say they said the waves got like up to like 7 feet, you know, for the waves. So I'm assuming that like they kept changing positions. One would get further on the boat than the other one, and vice versa. And I'm guessing at the very end, like Nick was the one that was like the highest on the boat because he survived. So he said like after a certain amount of time they started drifting away. And from his account, allegedly, what he said is like, I'm not sure if it was like Marquis or if it was Corey, but he was like basically one of them just started freaking out. And like with hypothermia, sometimes you can get hot. Like the way he described it was like as if like the person got hot and took off their vest and just dove underneath the water and never came back up. So either Marquis or I want to say it was, he said it was Marquis. He just kind of freaked out, or something could have touched his leg, if this is true, you know, and he freaked out. And he said that they just like, he said that he just like basically took his vest off and just went underwater and like never came back. Then he said the second person, which is I'm assuming is Corey, or it may be the other way around, so forgive me if it's wrong, but he basically was saying like one of them, the second person, like freaked out too, like after a certain amount of time, and became very aggressive. And then he was like, after that, like he kind of, I guess, was kind of like hitting Nick or whatever, and then eventually like went underwater, took his vest off, and also left and like never came back. Then he said like at that point it was just him and Will, which is the person he was closest to. They met, I forgot to mention that Nick and Will met at USF, a University of South Florida. So they were pretty much college football players, at least at one time. And then Marquis and Corey were like NFL players. Like Marquis played in like, I think 6 different leagues within like 3 years. Like he was like a hustler, and like he, you know, went from like the Bucks to like the Raiders and like some other teams that I have it written down, but I don't want to like go down the list. But basically he played for a couple NFL teams. He always was getting to the bag. And then Corey, you know, played for the Buccaneers around the same time as Marquis. And then I think at the time of his disappearance he was playing for the Detroit Lions. So like they were like, it was like 2 NFL players and 2 University of South Florida players that met through the gym, and that's how they became cool. So at the time, like the 2 dudes that was close and who boat it belonged to, like they so-called drifted off and kind of reacted to hypothermia first. And then at that point it was just the two friends that met at University of South Florida. So it was just, you know, if I'm all over the place, I'm so sorry, y'all. I'm gonna get so better at this though, because I really love this. But basically, at the time it was just Will and Nick, and he said that like he wouldn't like necessarily go into detail, but he was like, you know, as far as to the news outlets, he basically was like, Will helped him survive. Like if it wasn't for Will, like Will saved his life. If it wasn't for him, he wouldn't be here. Like I don't know exactly what he mean by that. And Nick has a book out, and the book, let me see if I can pull up the book. I'm not gonna put his book on here, but basically the survivor, he has a book out, and he put it out in like, I think it was like 2010, like a year after it happened, to like clear his name, because people were like, you know, questioning like what happened and stuff like that. And because it was mainly, I think, because his story kept changing. Like it kept changing. Like even I seen it with my own eyes. Like doing this research, I can't remember like when it was live and happening, but during this research I definitely seen that his story was like different from one outlet to the other. So I think that's why people were like questioning him. And like he would tell like, say, Marquis and Corey family something totally different from like the news outlets or what he told Will's family. So he was closer to Will, and at the end of like everything, they were the last two that survived. So he also mentioned that Corey at some point on one of the outlets allegedly was like, ain't no freaking way I'm going out like this. Like he said that, and like just kept saying that. And he said that like Marquis kept apologizing for like turning over the boat, like capsizing the boat, like when it first happened. He said like Marquis kept apologizing so much, it was like, you know, he apologized like 20 times within like 10 minutes. Like he just kept saying, I'm so sorry, and stuff like that, you know, because he's a captain and that was his boat. So I'm pretty sure, and he's the one that floored it, even though it wasn't necessarily his idea. Of course he's gonna feel responsible for everything. So he did mention that as well. And let me see, I'm gonna do some blush. We'll do some blush. Basically that's what he was saying. And let me see, so I'm all over the place and I'm hoping I can edit this right, but it was at the end of the day, he claimed that, you know, Marquis and Corey basically like freaked out and took off their vests, gave up, and drifted off, went underwater, did like something like that, which their family said about both of them that they weren't those type of people. They would like literally fight to the end and not just like basically give up. Like they were like their sons and husbands, because Marquis was married. Like that's not their character, but that's what Nick said happened. So they like took off their vests, went underwater, never came back. And then he said even at some point Will thought he seen like help signals or like, you know, flashing lights or land. Like one instance he said Will thought he saw land, and then the next instance he said like Will thought he saw like flashing lights, like help. And so he took off his vest and went to swim to the help and never came back. And so at this point it's just Nick, and Nick was on this capsized boat holding on for dear life on one of his because he did a couple interviews. He did like the Oprah show, which is very hard to find on YouTube. I wasn't even able to find the Oprah interview in full, but he did like an interview with Oprah. He did an interview with Larry King. He did an interview with like CNN, I believe. He did like a lot of like press, just to put that out there. And it seemed like every time he would do it, like the story would be kind of different and stuff like that. But one of the stories, one of the outlets, he told I think it was like CNN or Larry King. He told them that after Will left and it was just him, he spent basically like 12, like 10 hours, I think he said, like 10 to 17 hours out there by himself, like clinging on to the engine of the boat for dear life until like help came. So they went out on the February 28th, I believe it was, I want to say it was a Saturday. They went out on the boat around like 7 a.m. He was not found until like Monday. So he was out there for like almost 3 days, I believe. It was like not yet 72 hours, but it was like almost 72. I could be getting the days wrong too, but yeah. So basically he was out there more than 2 days. And he was like, the last part, he was out there for like, so basically, okay. What happened was is that, let me do my lips too. So basically what happened is, like, from what he described, is that Marquis and Corey disappeared the first day it happened, like, I guess the night of, like, this stuff happened as far as the boat capsizing around like 5-6 o'clock, and they went missing, like, I guess, like later on in the night when it was like super dark and stuff like that. So they disappeared like the first night, and he said like him and Will don't last like an extra day. So from what I remember, it happened like on the Saturday, and then that's when the two disappeared. And then after that, him and Will survived like all Sunday, and then Will drifted off sometime on Sunday, and then from there he was found by himself on Monday. So yeah, he was found. He said he was clinging onto the boat for all those hours. When they found him, he was highly fatigued and dehydrated, of course, and he was found, and it gave the other family hope that like the other ones was going to be found, and like they were never found. They called the search off. They found him. They found, because I have it written down somewhere, they found, basically they started searching for them on 1:30 a.m. So this did happen on Saturday. So when they took off, it was on Saturday at 7. The stuff that happened with the boat overturning and things like that was like the late afternoon, like 5 or 6 o'clock. He said that the Coast Guard didn't start looking for them until 1:30 a.m. Sunday. So like, yeah, and by that time at least 2 of them was gone. But when they found Nick, they were able to kind of like narrow their searches down or whatever, because he was able to like tell them more information, like where they venture off at and stuff like that. The boat was found on March 2nd, and they called off the search on March 6th. So after March 6th, Coast Guard called off the search, and the families of, I believe it was both Marquis and Corey, wanted to do their own independent search, and I believe that they did, but they were never found. I don't want to keep this too long. I know this probably was all over the place, but hopefully it was still good and informative. But yeah, so basically like they were never found. They were lost at sea. So you have Marquis Cooper, Corey Smith, and Will Bleakley lost at sea. The only person that survived is Nick Schuler, and like I said, still to this day, he at first he was doing like a lot of press, but like now I think he lived like a pretty like, you know, quiet life. He is, from what I know, still a trainer in the Tampa Bay area, and it always stuck with me, this story, because like when it happened, it just seemed so unreal, because it was like in our area, and it was like, how does a person become lost at sea? And like the fact that they never found their bodies, like not even like a little bit, like that to me is like so crazy. Like it's always like, where are these people? Like what happened to them? So that's what happened as far as 4 football players going missing in the Gulf of Mexico, aka like the Tampa Bay. They were just going out on a fishing trip, It's very bizarre because still to this day it's so much, to me, missing information. It's not a lot of coverage on it. Like, even though, like, I think it made it to like Nancy Grace, and I used to watch Nancy Grace like every single night, like when I was like in 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade. It made it far. He the survivor Nick, he was even like on the Oprah show, which is, like I said, it's very hard to find that interview. He was on Larry King, he was on CNN, so it got national coverage. But I find it weird that, like, this was such a, like I said, bizarre, odd case. These, you know, it was involving like NFL players, like, you know, people with names, and no one really talks about it no more. Like, even around the area that I live in, like, no one, I think most people forgot about this case. It has always stuck with me. Even like the anniversaries and stuff like that, like, you don't see anything going on for them. Like, they literally played for like an NFL, like a couple NFL teams, and like in this area they played for like the one that we have. And it's like, it's kind of crazy how like the story just kind of disappeared. This guy, he's just like living his life, not saying that he shouldn't, but like, it's just kind of, it's as if it's like it never happened. So I wanted to touch bases and, you know, just kind of bring more awareness to it, because I'm going to start doing, and I'm going to get better with time, but I'm going to start doing just stories first, like in my area, like in, you know, Tampa Bay and just Florida in general. Like, the next case is another case that has always stuck with me since I was little, and, you know, it made national news too, but at the same time it's kind of like this one, like, it was big at the time, but like now, like, people don't, you don't really hear about it no more. So stay tuned for this series. I feel like I know what I want to name like this portion of my channel and series. Like, I'm just going to still do what I normally do, like, you know, get ready with me's, you know, let's talks, vlogs, try on hauls, you know, all that type of stuff. Like, I'm still going to be doing that, but this is like a segment that I did want to add to my channel. I hope you guys enjoy. It's your girl Chanel Beauty. Please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe, and also do more research on this story. And yeah, so it's kind of like, it's literally an unsolved mystery. Like, it's an unsolved mystery. Like, the fact that they have never found these guys, these big guys, like 6'3", like I think they said Marquis was like 6'3", 215. Corey was like around the same size, you know, even Will. Like, the fact that they never found not an ounce of these dudes, it just makes you wonder, like, what happened. Because even if they just drowned and the sea life didn't bother them, you would think like at some point they would have been found. And this happened in 2009, and it's 2022, and these guys have never been found. You know, was they swished away out further into the Gulf of Mexico? Like, it's just like, it's so, like, it's just so mind-boggling. Like, it's just like, that sticks with me, bro. Like, since it happened, like, I remember around the time it happened and everything like that. So yeah, I wanted to touch bases on that story, bring awareness if I can, even though my channel is small, but just like bring some type of awareness and speak about it. Especially since this is a segment that I wanted to do. I thought that was like such a great story to cover, and I may at some point hopefully can like maybe speak to, since it is in my area, speak to like maybe a family member or two, and just to get their take on it, especially since it's been a while. And even though you never get over the passing of a loved one, like, they may be more open to talk about it and stuff like that, because it is so many different stories and articles about it that it is kind of hard to kind of piece together everything. But I tried to do my best. But it's definitely one of those bizarre cases that once you find out about it, like, it's not probably going to leave your thoughts. You're going to be like, so like they never like found nothing, like they never found nothing. They were literally lost at sea, like nothing. They literally disappear out of the face of the earth. And that's just scary, like, to think about, especially to think it was Marquis' boat, like, and he was like big on the waters. He was very familiar with it. He was very advanced with it, and to just know that he just like disappeared like that, like that's a hard pill to swallow, even if you don't know them. So it's your girl Chanel Beauty. Like, comment, and subscribe. Share this video with your family, your friends, and your boo thing. And I will check y'all in the next video.